to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is the joint meeting with the Library Board of Trustees to fill a vacancy. Do I have any nominations for the vacancy?
I'll nominate Kevin Hamilton.
Second it.
We have a motion and a second for Kevin Hamilton. Are there any other nominations? Mr. Hamilton, would you like to say anything?
Sure. Thank you. Good evening, the Holy Cross. I'm 19 years old and recently graduated from Chelmsford High School in 2020, and I'm seeking to fill the vacant seat on the Board of the Library Trustees. I have been fortunate enough to serve on the Associate Board of the Library over the past few months, helping to establish the role of the Associate Board, and now currently serving on the Fundraising Committee and looking into new projects. So I've learned a lot about the library over the past few months, and I'm hoping that I will be able to learn more about it in this new position. So with that, I humbly ask for your consideration for me as I seek to fill this seat. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Questions?
Very well said.
Okay, if not, we'll take a vote for the library trustees. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, for the board, the select board? Okay, we have unanimous, 4 from the trustees and 5 from the select board. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for serving.
Thank you.
So before we let them go, this associate board you guys have set up, can you just talk about that just for a minute or two, that people don't know what it is, whoever knows a little bit about it?
You want it?
I'm the grandma of the group, so my name is Maggie Marshall, and I've been a library trustee for 25 years. We developed the Associate Board of Trustees, the Associate Board, to serve alongside the Board of Trustees. The Associate Board is not a voting, does not have voting rights. But actually, one of the reasons we developed it, and Kevin, it's worked out already, is to have people who are interested in the library, who would possibly, and actually Patio was elected this April by the town of Chelmsford. She was on our associate board for a year. It's a way to test the water, see if you might like to run for public office, and it helps us when somebody goes off the board, or in this case Jane moved to Baltimore, to have somebody that's already here up to speed and is a known commodity in terms of working for the library. So they're allowed at trustees meetings to participate fully except for voting. And as Kevin alluded, we have subcommittees on the board, and they're comprised of trustees and associate board. So
how would somebody who's interested get on this board?
they would fill out the same form that we've tweaked the form that you used, Why Reinvent the Wheel, that you have a form in place for volunteers that want to be on volunteer boards. So it's the same format.
And it's on the library website?
Well, maybe we're not quite there yet. Well, we have a lot of work to do, but I'll let you know when it is on the library website, and we will advertise that. But it's very much the same form. It probably just has the Chelmsford Public Library logo on it.
Okay.
How many associate members do you have?
4 right
Four,
now.
a total of 4. So, and so far between Patio and Kevin, it's really been an enhancement. So.
Very good.
Oh, we also did it just to try to seek more diversity among the board. Obviously, Kevin is bringing down our age average, and for that, we're grateful. So I think it's a win-win situation.
Okay. Thanks.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for your
Yeah.
time.
Thank you.
Okay, Representative Golden is running a little bit late, so we'll jump to public service announcements. Have you got them, Ken?
Yep, I got them. You want me to run through them?
Yep.
So the first one is,
Missing one. It's okay, go ahead.
Town of Chelmsford 2021 Independence Day Program. So the night prior, at 7 to 9 p.m., there's going to be
Really not tonight.
I'm sorry, you're right.
2 nights prior.
2 nights prior, the 3rd, Saturday night. 7 to 9 p.m., there's going to be a band concert on the Chelmsford Community Band on the Center Common. And then on Monday, July 5th, so there won't be any celebration on the 4th itself of any type, but on the 5th, at 9:30, there'll be a flag raising, police and fire at the Center Common flagpole. And then at 10 a.m., they'll have the annual Independence Day Parade. Important 2021 updates: with COVID-19 restrictions lifted, Chelmsford's Independence Day Parade is back on. However, it will be scaled back version. There will not be a reviewing stand or live broadcast this year, and the county fair and the John Carson Roadways race were postponed to next year. And we look forward to a full event next year in 2022. That's the first item. Do you want me to do the next one too?
Sure.
So this is a notice that there's a redistricting virtual hearing of the 3rd Congressional District. So it'll be Thursday, July 8th at 6 p.m. You can find the link on the town, is it on the town website right now? So if you-
Not for the announcement is on the town website, but the link to register is only on the
Announcement?
state website.
Okay. So they have to go to the state website to click to
The link is in
register.
this announcement.
All right, so you do have to go and register for the event, and this will be a discussion on the redistricting.
It should be noted, this has to do with congressional redistricting, not the state redistricting. Just so people don't go to that one expecting to talk about 4 reps in Chelmsford,
Got it.
because they're not going to be talking about that.
No, I believe it's all related from my discussion with Tom. We can ask him when he gets here, but this is the hearing he told me is the opportunity to provide input.
Okay,
These are the hearings they're having to determine how they're going to redistrict the municipalities, or to get input on how they do it.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right,
They're holding the hearings by congressional district.
okay.
But it's for the purpose of supporting the Joint Committee on
I'm glad I said that
Redistricting.
then, because I misunderstood. I thought it was just for the,
No,
okay,
this is it.
okay, good.
The
Right.
town website has the link for.
Oh, it does?
It does, yeah. I
Thank
just
you,
checked
Paul,
that.
I didn't realize that.
All right. And the last and final notice, the Town of Chelmsford Public Notice, Fall 2021 Annual Town Meeting. The Town of Chelmsford will convene the 2021 Fall Town Meeting on Monday, October 18th. Articles to be included on the warrant must be submitted in duplicate to the Town Office Manager at 50 Billerica Road prior to 4 p.m. on Monday, August 2nd, 2021. Any articles submitted after that time will not be considered by the Select Board for inclusion on the warrant. Petition articles submitted by private citizens must carry the signatures of at least 10 or more certified voters of the Town of Chelmsford. For more information, you can contact the Town Manager's Office at 978-250-5202.
Okay. So why don't we do public input while we're waiting? That's the next thing on the agenda. Is there anyone, there's no one in the room here. Is there anyone in the Zoom room who has input for public input?
There's nobody in there either, really.
I don't see anybody.
Unless
So
Paul-
I just have one letter that the North Chelmsford Water District asked me to read into the record during public input. And this is from Bruce Harper.
I listened to this.
You can step out if you'd like. I'm just reading a letter, but
Just, I'm looking for guidance.
it's about 54 Richardson Road, so if you would like to step out, you can step out.
Thank you.
George Dixon is recusing himself as I read this letter. It's from Bruce Harper, the water superintendent at the North Chelmsford Water District. I would appreciate full involvement in the PFAS investigation and current written progress reports to exactly where the PFAS contamination immediate response assessment plan is at. And now, since Weston and Sampson has installed piezometers and transducers, what is the groundwater flow and the influence on the deep and shallow wells installed on the North Chelmsford Water District's property? I am very concerned with all our production wells, especially the North Chelmsford Water District's gravel-packed wells 3 and gravel-packed well 4, since they are the ones that are the closest to the PFAS contamination, and very concerned with the, quote, estimated schedule of response actions that Weston and Sampson are proposing to the town of Chelmsford and the Board of Select Persons that don't take remedial action until December 11, 2025 through December 11, 2026, and possible beyond. The North Chelmsford Water District is pumping a large volume of water due to the hot weather, and the cone of contribution to these wells will be reaching further into the groundwater aquifer as the water table lowers. The granular activated carbon filters that were installed in 2011, and then after 8 years, a complete granular activated carbon removal and replacement was done in November of 2019 for chlorite removal. The PFAS is beginning to break through the granular activated carbon filters at low levels of PFAS. The North Chelmsford Water District is monitoring and sampling for PFAS on the first Wednesday of the month and are doing the best management practice to blend our sources to keep the incoming raw water below 20 parts per trillion per nanogram per liter. This is getting more difficult because of the high water demands. I received an estimate of $171,000 to do another complete removal and replacement of the granular activated carbon. Calgon Carbon is recommending a larger size granular activated carbon particle that is approved for the better absorption of PFAS contaminants. At this rate of absorption between November 2019 and December 2026, the granular activated carbon will need to be replaced at a minimum of 3 times. That's if the PFAS levels in the groundwater aquifer don't increase. Since the PFAS is impacting and absorbing the granular activated carbon, I am going to ask the town of Chelmsford to cover this cost and any other associated costs to the North Chelmsford Water District from PFAS contamination from October 7th, 2020 to and beyond December 11th, 2026, possibly by a grant or any other means that the town of Chelmsford has. The Board of Water Commissioners met on June 21st, 2021, and discussed this matter in detail and agree with the information and data that the town of Chelmsford is the responsible party. Sincerely, Bruce Harper, Water Superintendent. Okay. Would you mind somebody getting George?
George, I've got it.
Thank you, Paul. And we're still waiting for Tom, so Ken, would you like to do committee vacancies? Sorry, I don't seem to have them on my folder.
What's that? So the Arts and Technology Education Fund Committee is looking for 2 seats to be filled. The Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee has one unexpired 3-year term and 1 3-year term. CCA Advisory Committee has 2 seats open. The Center Village Master Implementation Committee has 1 seat available. Commissions on Disabilities has 1 unexpired 3-year term and 1 3-year term. Community Action Program Committee has 2 1-year terms. Council on Aging has 1 3-year term and 5 associate member positions available. Cultural Council has 2 3-year terms. Energy Conservation Committee has 1 unexpired 3-year term and 2 3-year terms. Holiday Decorating Committee has 1 1-year term. The Parade Committee will welcome all applicants to 1-year terms. Permanent Building Committee has 1 unexpired 3-year term. The Personnel Board has 1 unexpired 2-year term. Public Celebrations Committee has 5 1-year terms. Public Records Advisory Committee is looking to fill 1 seat. Recycling Committee is looking to fill 3 seats to 1-year terms. And the Tree Committee has 1 unexpired 3-year term and 1 3-year term. If anybody's interested in any of these committees or wants further information, please feel free to reach out to the town. They can contact the town manager's office at 978-250-5202 or send an email to tmoffice@chelmsfordma.gov.
Thank you, Ken. Paul, do you want to start with reports and presentations?
Sure. Yeah, we have Steve Yonley.
We can always break if Tom gets
Sure.
here.
We have our Steve Yonley, our Assistant DPW Director, and Gary Persichetti, our DPW Director, on the Zoom link. and Steve will go over, provide an update regarding the 54 Richton Road Immediate Response Action Plan and the Geophysical Survey that was recently completed. Good evening, Steve.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Steve, could you hold on?
Yep.
Board Member
Oh, sorry.
Dixon is going to recuse himself.
No, that's right. Just anybody in the Zoom room, the feed isn't running in the Zoom room, so it's,
You're loud and clear here.
yeah, we can't see the meeting, so,
Chelmsford Telemedia, if you didn't hear that, in the Zoom room, they can't see the meeting.
Oh, actually, I just pulled that up. He's right. It's, he's got like a funny logo spinning.
yeah, it's the blue screen and
It just says the admin.
No video, yeah. But we can see you, Steve, and hear you clearly in the room.
All right.
Which is good.
so just I guess a quick update on where we are with the Richardson Road thing. I know you just read Bruce Hopper's letter in. At the last meeting, I think the board requested sort of a timeline, schedule looking out.
Excuse me, Steve.
Sure.
Just tell me which attachment you're going to talk to. We had the geophysical survey, and then we also have the Weston and Sampson timeline. So
Yep,
I don't know which one you want. I have the conclusions of the physical survey up, or I can switch to the Weston and Sampson timeline.
Yeah, no, the physical survey, that's fine. I can touch on that briefly. We did get the full scan back. As you see, the report, I think, is on the agenda. They did have a few additional areas of interest, I guess, some over in the dog park and some way out in the rear of the site. So after speaking with Paul McKinley at Weston and Sampson, we've scheduled a call for later this week to discuss our options, and then we plan on after the 4th, just because, with the parade on, we won't have available staff. So after the 4th, at some point that week or the week after, we'll set a crew aside to go out and do some investigation, do some digging, and see. I can say that about a week and a half ago, we did remove that one tank that we found out in the back from the initial test pitting back in March. And in kind of the over excavation for that, I know in the initial survey, there was some hits around that where that tank was located. And what we found in the over excavation for that removal was a broken cutting edge from a snow plow and then like an old metal bucket. So I guess the hope is, that's the majority of what we find when we get looking around the site. But, we have to, go ahead.
I just have a question. When you said that, you're going to get together with them after the holiday and go and talk about what next.
Yep.
I have plate 2, the diagram labeled plate 2 up on the screen.
Okay.
So I just want to clarify, my understanding from reading the report is it's those red hashed areas, the large ones, that may or may not be of concern. Is that what your discussions are focusing on, or?
Yep, we're
Did I
gonna,
misread
basically focus in on those areas. Because what they did was they did the electromagnetic survey first, and then when they had anomalies, they come back over it with the ground penetrating radar to kind of hone in, and that, what you see with the grid is sort of, they narrow it down with the ground penetrating radar. So those will be the areas that we will be at least doing some initial digging in to see what it could possibly be.
Okay. Are there any other questions on the geophysical survey?
Just a quick question, Steve. On that same map, as you're looking at the red that's around the buildings, is that just because of normal runoff, or is that?
So the problem they have is when they start getting real close to the buildings, it kind of throws the readings off.
Got it.
So it looks like there's stuff all buried along the buildings, but it's really the block in the building or the metal in the building kind of throws, like when you look at the dog park, when they went around, like they have the couple of shade structure things, it kind of throws the readings all off. So they tried to get in as close as they can to like the buildings and such, but it just kind of throws it off.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, did you want to move to the timeline next?
Yep, sure, that's fine. So, I believe at the last meeting, the board had asked for sort of a schedule going forward, like a Gantt chart or something along those lines. So, again, it's speaking with Paul McKinley, Weston and Sampson, what we did was kind of summarize what we've done to this point, and then he put together kind of the looking ahead over the next few years. Basically, things we have to do, some dates are set from DEP on when we have to report certain things. But just to quickly, I know in
So-
Bruce's
So
email.
Steve, I have page 1 of the timeline up. If you want me to scroll to page 2, let me know. But,
Well, again, I can't see it, so. I
right,
can-
so just tell me when to move, because I don't know what dates you're talking through.
Yep, if you wanted to, you can probably just go right to the second page. It's got it kind of listed out, that's probably the easiest thing to explain. Kind of, it talks about, at the top, the stuff we've done to date, you know, when the date of the initial notification, the DEP back last December, and then kind of the steps we've done up till now, up to including last week when they did the second round of well sampling all over the site. Oh, I can see it now. And then looking out going forward, you know, once we get the results back, hopefully here in the next couple of weeks, they'll tabulate things. She's kind of got the middle of July to receive some of that back. And then just kind of moving forward with some additional reporting. And then as we get in towards the end of the summer, we'll be sort of filing our remediation plan with DEP. And then if we get approved from them, remediation would start based on Paul's schedule. The end of the year, he has December 31st of 2021 for us to begin the initial remediation. So I don't know, there's some different levels of that. So I think that's kind of what Bruce was saying in his letter, but the initial remediation is, assuming DEP approves what they present for a plan, should start by the end of the year. So then it looks out again, you know, just kind of going forward a little bit, the reporting dates, and then as we move through it, there are certain dates that have to be hit. But, I mean, the DEP is the driver in all of this. As we saw with the plan that we're under now, you know, I know the board's aware comments were made that usually these plans take 2 or 3 years. They condensed it to about 10 months, so they could very well condense, you know, the next step of this too. So I guess we'll see once we get our remediation plan submitted what the status of that would be. But at this point, it's still, like I said, we just sampled the wells. They're continuing to take readings on the piezometers and the transducers. So as that information continues to come in, they'll be processing it, and we'll be back, you know, for the board here, I assume later in the summer with a full update report.
Quick question first. Thanks a lot, Steve, for getting that timeline for us. That really helps. Just a question. Can you specifically, or do you know, if when they do the laboratory testing, can they achieve a profile or a fingerprint of the specific PFAS chain that they're measuring?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're sampling for the 6 different varieties at this point. We get all that information, the full breakdown of the levels and all that. So I mean, I can certainly include that if you want to see that stuff. But
Is it just the 6, or do you look at others as well, if there's residuals, you know, smaller peaks? I'm just curious about.
So that my understanding is when we speaking of the PFAS, it's those 6 main strains, or whatever you want to call it, and it's the total of those 6 that you have to hit the 20 parts per trillion. So that's sort of the focus. If, I mean, honestly, the lab reports are quite cumbersome, and there's a lot of acronyms and charts and letters, and so I can certainly delve a little deeper into it to see if it's, because I know there's many different varieties of this, but it's those initial 6 that DEP requires you to add up. So I think that's been more of the focus.
I was just thinking that maybe when Weston and Sampson does appear again before us with the test results and so forth, maybe they could answer some of that in general terms. Because I'm just curious if any of these spots have a specific profile or fingerprint versus other ones. You know, just for mapping purposes and for potentially downstream, if you will, consideration.
Sure. So I know of the 6 that we have been focusing on, the levels of the 6 are a little bit different depending on where you are on the site. So, you know, over towards the dog park, there was one that got sort of jumped much higher than it is any place else on the site. So for whatever reason, you know, that was the case. That's why we did additional well installations around over in that corner of the dog park to try to really sort of narrow in. And then with some results from the survey, you know, we'll be doing some digging over there as well, just to see what the case may be. But I know, like I said, of those 6, there was definitely some variation. It wasn't just kind of a flat line thing across the property. There was a little bit of variation, so.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Sure.
So Steve, I have a couple questions. There's on the timelines, there's a June 15th where the dog park receptor evaluation is completed, a June 22nd where additional soil boring and monitoring and sampling is completed, and then a July 16th where the assessment data is received and tabulated. And then after July 16th, it says on August 6th, we have a conceptual remediation approach. So it's those data assessments that are going to inform what the proposed approach is, and are those also going to inform what the source is for the contamination?
So I don't necessarily think it will truly identify a source.
Okay.
I mean, the source could have been, you know, stuff when the town ran the trash trucks, you know, 45 years ago, and it's just been held up in the groundwater. But basically, because since we're on the condensed timeline, we did the first round of sampling earlier in the spring. We just did the second round a week ago. So based off of that data, they're gonna, once we get that back in the next couple of weeks, they're gonna basically formulate the remediation plan. That's that August 6th date. You know, we'll have the initial discussion on, because I think the last time Paul was in front of you, you know, there were kind of the 2 options, you know, injecting into the groundwater or sort of recycling the groundwater with some treatment. So I think once we get that next round of data, their team will be able to really narrow in on which road we want to go down for the remediation. So again, I think that's that August 6th date. I was thinking more the end of December, but yeah, August 6th. So then we can start preparing, because we have until October 11th to submit the plan to DEP. So obviously, if we can get that done sooner, it'll just, you know, it'll benefit everybody.
So on that timeline where Paul McKinley has December 31st of 2021 is where we begin the remediation activities, and then he's got the 2024, 2025, and 26 states which are of concern to the water department. Are those based on typical experience that there are different phases of remediation that occur, and this is the timeline it takes, or does he have something more substantive that's backing that timeline right now?
No, I think, and when I spoke to him last week, I think that's kind of a general sort of layout or when you start this, it's, you know, kind of certain dates along the way that you have to hit. Like I said earlier, that could very well get condensed from DEP, you know, as opposed to looking out, like the 5 years, 4 or 5 years, that could get condensed in. You know, my understanding and speaking to him, you know, we're not gonna get out there and it's, you know, be able to remediate it in, you know, a week. It's gonna be a process, so, the hope is, you know, we develop a plan, we work with DEP, they're on board, they approve it, and then by the end of the calendar year, we're, you know, ramping up to start the remediation efforts.
Okay, and when he presents that plan, the hope would be that in the initial you know, if the problem is as big as X, hopefully I tend to agree, I'm concerned about the water supply, and I don't want to push the substantive portion of the remediation out too far if there's something we can do in the near term to get things under control.
No, I think we'd all agree with that, so that's
Yeah,
the
I know
plan.
you do. Thank you.
Steve, just one clarifying point. So when I was asking about the profile or fingerprint of the test results specific to an area, I wasn't really meaning the differences in what you're finding in the 6 elements that you're looking at. I was more thinking about the other trace elements that may be prevalent in that particular sample that could help to identify that location versus other locations, because, you know, it just going a little bit higher or lower in the 6 we're looking at, that's fine. Not much you can do with that unless it's really out. But if there are other trace elements in that particular sample, that could provide a clue and an idea as to what may have been involved there, and also if we see it downstream. That's why I was asking.
No, I see what you're saying. So
Okay.
to potentially identify a,
Yeah.
you know, a product or a source or whatever the case may be. Yeah, I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying.
And if we see it downstream, we kind of know that where it came from.
Sure.
Yeah, type 7 is by the road, but it's not by the dog park, but it is by the back of the building, then you know it flowed from
Yeah.
the back of the building towards the road.
It can help, and they're probably doing that. It just
Yep.
depends on how the assay is designed and so forth, so.
Any other questions or comments?
So in terms of next update, Steve, this board's next meeting in 2 weeks on the 12th, we really, correct me if I'm wrong, we really don't have much more in 2 weeks. So really to be the following meeting when you have the data results back on the 26th of July?
Yeah, I think even the way it's been running, it's been about 3 weeks or so roughly to get all the results in, and since the additional well installation, as well as everything else, the piezometers, the transducers, they took some ground samples around the dog park based on with the irrigation well there, just to see if there was anything going on with the irrigation running. And even if they get that, they need like a week or so to tabulate everything and, you know, kind of graph it out and total it all up, so, you know, we can make an informed presentation. So yeah, I would think if we put it off till not the next one, but the one after that would probably be safe.
Okay. Anything else?
Bruce is asking to
Bruce is
speak.
looking.
Everybody okay with that? Okay, Bruce, just state your name for the record, please.
Yeah, Bruce Harper, the superintendent of the North Chelmsford Water District. I apologize. I was on the wrong Zoom meeting. I was on your
That's
June
okay.
30th meeting, waiting for the 6:30 start.
Well, we read your letter into the record. And,
Okay, great. Okay,
and,
thank you.
We did talk about the timeline. I'd prefer not to rehash it if we don't have to.
Nope, that's where I jumped in on. I'd like to
Okay.
just kind of talk about the timeline, just to let you know the surrounding towns, Littleton, Ayer, Acton, they've actually got into the same situation that we're in now, and the Army Corps of Engineers stepped up and started immediate remediation in Ayer. Littleton has actually started their pilot study. They're getting ready to start remediation. So the time frame of 5 or 6 years is way off. I mean, we got towns surrounding us with numbers in the 30s and 40s parts per trillion. We're talking a lot higher numbers, and these guys have already started remediation. So the timeline could be cut way down. That's just my point. And as Mark was saying, with the 6 contaminants that the town is looking for, they call it the PFAS 6. That's only just what's approved. I mean, what's regulated. There's 4,800 different PFASs, and you're going to see a lot more get regulated down the road. So I just want to just clarify
Yeah,
a
and
couple
so,
of
so
comments.
Bruce, what we discussed is the timeline that's in the packet is a notional timeline, absent having the data received and evaluated, and we're going to get more update the first week of August after we have the data and they have something to work with in terms of laying out a recommended timeline. We all agree we want to remediate this as fast as possible. Okay?
And how about the yard as far as all the other traces they picked up with the scanning and electromagnetism? What's going to be done there?
So there, we also already talked about that. Steve's going to be working with the LSP after the 4th holiday to look at where the areas of potential concern might be and what the next steps would be.
Okay, thank you. Like I said, I apologize. I was on the wrong
Okay.
Zoom meeting.
All right,
I got a
thank
quick
you.
question. Bruce, is there any
Yes.
thought to testing twice a month during the times that you're concerned about the heat and the depth that you'll be drawing water?
Well, right now, my numbers are pretty constant. I'm seeing coming in on the raw probably between 16 and 18 parts per trillion. I am starting to see a little bit of breakthrough on the PFOA and the PFOS. It's down around like 1.9 parts per trillion to 2 parts per trillion. That's been pretty consistent. I will be sampling next Wednesday, the 7th, I believe it is, 4th, 5th, 6th, the 6th. So I don't think doing twice a month's going to really change much, but I am keeping a tab on it very closely.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Steve and Bruce. We're going to bring George back in, and Tom Golden is also here, so we're going to jump back and take that out of order, or put him back in the order.
One of those things. Got lost out there. I'm on the first floor.
Thank you. So, yeah, we're going to go ahead. I want to welcome Representative Golden to the Select Board meeting. We asked that Tom come here to give us an overview of what the redistricting process will be for the state and a little bit of background on what the Special Joint Committee on Redistricting is all about. And we also did do a public service announcement about the July 8th hearing, so maybe you could touch on that as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair, and through to the members. I want to say thank you very much to all the members for inviting me here today. I appreciate that very much. Really just here to make that announcement that I believe Congresswoman Trahan had sent out an email earlier about the July 8th, the 3rd Congressional District. I am actually on redistricting. I asked to be put onto redistricting to see if we could look at other items. But for the time being, how the redistricting committee has broken up the hearings and the meetings is by congressional districts. So currently right now, we have, as many people do know, we have 9 congressional districts. We have a few meetings left that are open to the public. And we will be discussing on that particular day how anything within the 3rd Congressional District, which includes Chelmsford, Lowell, and so many other cities and towns. I want to say it's 42 other cities and towns that I think Congresswoman Trahan represents. So we will be opening it up at 6 o'clock, probably honestly kicking it off sometime around 6:20 after the niceties and the introductions and whatnot. People will have that opportunity to sign up to speak. Myself and the chair had spoken about this previously. Maybe it'd be an opportunity for the BOS to sign up. Anyone can sign up, fairly easy to speak. www.mass.gov/LEGIS. You'll see the redistricting piece right on there, bottom left-hand side, if I'm not mistaken. And if you're looking to speak, you can sign up right on that at that time frame. You can sign up today for it, as a matter of fact. So other than that, what's happening totally, throughout the Commonwealth, we have to look at this. The easiest way sometimes is to look at it from a tube of toothpaste to see where the pressure is going to be coming. The pressure is definitely going to be coming from the Berkshires, Hampden County, Franklin, and even Barnstable. Berkshire County is down 4.8%. This is all going to mean something in a moment. Berkshire County is down 4.8%. Franklin's down -1. Barnstable's down -1.3, and Hampden is up 0.06. What does that mean? Massachusetts as a whole has grown by 7.4%. So we definitely have a lot of growth going on, but there's going to be a lot of movement going on. The congressmen from the western part of the state will definitely be pushing into the east, which includes Chelmsford. We can include anything: Westford, Chelmsford, Lowell, Drake, and everything else. So from the congressional standpoint, those lines will be coming closer this way. Congresswoman Presley has a plus 53,000. So once again, every time we're talking about pluses and minuses, that's moving lines in the congressional district. For the state rep districts as well as the state senate districts, that also starts to trickle down, because there will be, or there is, I should say, a minus or a loss of folks in the Berkshires, in Hampton, in Franklin, and so on and so forth. They'll be pushing this way. Boston will be pushing up towards the Merrimack Valley. So I think it's going to be an opportunity for Chelmsford. I know this has been something we've been trying to work on. To go right now, is the folks who are watching right now, that we know that there's 4 state representatives, and I think it'd be an opportunity to bring it from 4 to 3. I don't know about 2. So I can sit here and talk about numbers, the ideal numbers of a state rep seat, which is 43,900. What the -5%, what the +5%, that's going to be the piece that we're going to go back and forth. The total population, at least in my district that I represent currently right now, in 2010 it was 41,528, and today's estimate is 43,331. That's right within the ideal number that every state representative will have, but that doesn't mean districts can't move around a little bit. We will have the final numbers, we're hoping, by September 30th of this year. Once we have those final numbers, it's going to be fast and furious to the goal line to get it completed. So that's all a bunch of numbers that people are probably scratching their head, and what does it mean, and what's going on. But at home when they're thinking about this. So I think the number one piece for folks to realize is that July 8th from 6 p.m. until we're done will be on this hearing, and it's virtual, so it's fairly easy for folks to sign into and talk about some of their concerns. Once again, www.mass.gov/LEGIS, short for legislature, and once you go onto the site, you'll see redistricting on the left-hand side. Madam Chair, once again, through you to the members, if there's any questions that I can answer, I'd gladly sit here and hear what you folks have to say. I definitely know I've heard from so many constituents, and quite frankly, I look around and I see a lot of familiar faces. So, as far as talking and getting things done up in the State House, so thank you very much, Madam Chair.
So Tom, I have two questions.
Sure.
So you probably
If I can answer them.
Okay. So you probably have heard that we're going to go through a pretty significant re-precincting.
Yes.
In Chelmsford. So will we have to have that done before this is all done, or how is that going to work?
Well, I might kick this one to your right, my left, over to the town manager. We've had that discussion. The State House, the House of Representatives and the Senate, is saying that does not need to happen at this time. That is up in the air right now. That's the best I can give you right now.
Excuse me, they're saying what doesn't need to happen?
The re-precincting.
Doesn't need to happen before the
Correct,
redistricting?
before we actually redistrict. So unless the manager has any other input on that. I know the Secretary of State thinks differently, and that's I'll be honest, that's not been settled at this time.
Okay, well, I guess, speaking personally, I would go with the Secretary of State.
Sure. we have nine, and I don't know how many you're thinking about. I don't even want to get into a potential number of what the town is thinking about, but from the state's perspective at this time, there is a difference of opinion.
But that'll get resolved in the legislature, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
It will be resolved in the legislature, in I would think in due time.
So my other question is, I guess I don't understand why, you talk about the tube of toothpaste that you have, but it seems that you go back, I don't know if you do state reps first and then Senate, or the other way around when you do the redistricting, but why do you have to do it twice? Why can't you either do all the senates first, and then you have 40 districts, and then carve each senate district into 4 reps districts.
Probably sounds a heck of a lot easier.
I mean,
Yeah,
is that-
probably could, but each house and each house, meaning the House of the Representatives and the House of the Senate, they do end up doing their own redistricting of their colleagues. But in today's situation with Chelmsford, I don't think I'm breaking any news to anybody here. It's been all over the place, but Representative Gobert is not running, which will give some room. This is the same thing that happened a few years back when a dear friend of many of us here, Representative Clevin, when she decided not to run. So that is, it's not a negative. I don't know what's going to happen at the end of the day. I really don't. But I specifically asked to be put onto redistricting to kind of help this situation that was created that's so many years ago. But when there is not a representative present, you can't gerrymander somebody out of a seat. You can't do that. And that's when, at the time, when the representative retired, that's going to be the same thing with the representative now who is retiring. So there's going to be some more, I think there's going to be more flexibility as there was in the past.
But isn't it also the majority-minority
Yes.
districts, which is really a driver that's going to be scrutinized?
That's correct. So when you're thinking about the tube of toothpaste, and there's no other way to really, if you're squeezing it over here, it's got to come out someplace. Within the city of Lowell, if you want to take the district that I represent just as an example, I bump into Drake bumps into obviously New Hampshire. So me pushing into Representative Gary, who is over there now, she has no place to go, if you think of it because that border. Now if I come into Chelmsford, I can't get to Chelmsford through what would be traditionally the Highlands, because the Highlands is a protected majority-minority district. So any type of protected majority-minority district, you can think is a bubble right around it. Hence, I know people at home really can't see this, but hence with the majority-minority district, that's why I scoop around from Pawtucketville, come into North Chelmsford, where if that was not a protected majority-minority district, Representative Mom probably would have picked up the Highlands. The Westlands, the Highlands would have all been some type of representation. I hope that, and if anybody has any questions on this is not something we can do in 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. I'm glad to stay here, speak with you folks, but I'm saying anybody at home, feel free to give me a call. I think everyone has it anyways. 978-590-4941 is my cell or my email, and I'd gladly talk to you about how this happens. So, but I'm more than happy to stay here and talk about those particular pieces. But, Mr. Manager, you are correct. Throughout the state, when you have majority-minority districts, you just have to think of it as the toothpaste is going right at something and it goes right around it. You can't touch it because it must be a majority-minority district. Or they have to create one, which we've done as a legislature in the past.
Tom, in one of the announcements, I saw something about written testimony,
Mm-hmm.
that your people can provide written testimony.
That's correct.
What would be the time frame for doing that? Does it have to be in by July 8th, or is there time after the 8th as you're having other hearings to provide written input?
It's always, Madam Chair, it's always going to be welcomed. Any type of written testimony will, but they do try to get it done in a timely fashion.
But you said you're trying to wrap up your hearing process by early September?
Correct.
Okay,
I would get
so
it in
would have
sooner
to
rather
be-
than later, but if somebody's going on vacation next week or something with the 4th and everything else, we'll be there on July 8th. Send it to me directly and I'll make sure it gets in the right hands. I don't even know if I would be that overly concerned about it. Once again, the numbers aren't going to be until, well, we're hoping, the numbers from the federal government will be in by September 30th. And being on the committee and knowing Mike Moran, who is a state rep from Alston-Brighton, who has done this now, this will be a second tour on this particular committee. I am confident, and I know this to be factual, Leader Moran would accept anything, even probably into October. Anything that's going to help the redistricting committee figure this out. There are a whole bunch of neat tools on there, on mass.gov/LEGIS, but you have to remember you got to take all of it into consideration. And I've kind of played around with it myself. It throws up a bunch of flags, and you can't do this, you can't do that. It's interesting if you're looking to dive in.
So if I may, I just have a couple of questions for the board related to this. Do we have board members who plan on or are able to attend on the 8th? because I have a conflict. George, that will. So we at least have a couple folks that can attend.
Madam Chair, if I may, if, through you to the members, if it's a possibility, if somebody, one person wants to speak on behalf of BOS, the Chelmsford BOS, and I'm not saying all of you could speak if you'd like, but if there's one person that would like to kind of speak the sentiment of the board, I'll make sure that that's recognized, coming from a town, that could happen.
And
I know-
that was kind of where I was going next, was is there a position the board wants to take that we can either quickly get to tonight, and/or do we want to spend some time on our July 12th meeting outlining written testimony on behalf of the board that we would then maybe approve at the next July meeting and submit?
I think I would prefer that second one, because I would have written down more comments about what I would like to see, so I'm really not prepared, I guess, to do it tonight.
I think maybe we should, as many members as possible, plan on being there on the 9th, and then,
On the 8th.
I mean, on the 8th, and then we.
You'll miss
You'll
it.
be lonely on the 9th,
I know.
Ken.
Well, it'll be a Friday night. My wife will kill me if I'm there on the 9th. But then, and then we could probably at the next meeting put something together.
All right, so we'll deliberate on the 12th, and then we'll write something up and review it at our next meeting in July, the last meeting in July, and submit. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
And once again, Madam Chair, through you to the members, if there's anything you want to write afterwards, don't, if you run into a constituent that really feels strongly about it, make sure you just give me a buzz or email it over, whatever, we'll make sure that's included as well.
And perhaps on the 12th, we could take some public input?
So when do you expect that we will know? By the end of the year, or
Yes.
before that? Okay.
Yep.
November?
I do.
November is the target? Yeah,
November's the target.
Because they want to be in the district a year before the
Yeah,
election.
there's
that's
a whole
right.
bunch of stuff that's going on here, so you really need to, we're really hustling on this, but we're also waiting. It's
So
kind of a
the-
hurry up and wait.
The timing between the state redistricting and the municipality reprecincting is out of the committee's hands?
It's in the legislature's hands.
Okay.
Yeah, it's out of the committee which I'm on. That's correct.
I think the public input would be good because a lot of people are talking about it.
Yeah.
So
So we can't do it without the permission of the legislature, is that what you're saying? If we wanted to, if we had ideas about how it was going to be done?
I think if you, and Paul, once again, excuse me, Mr. Manager, once again, I'm going to lean on you on this one. I don't know, I don't want to say that that's true. Because, once again, there is a lot of discrepancy. Wow, the lights go out. There's a lot of discrepancy between the legislature, the position that the legislature is in, and the position that the Secretary of State's in. And not being an attorney, I think I might just hold off until we figure this thing out.
Right, what appears to be happening is if, right now, the way the law is, traditionally, the pattern has been you do re-precincting, and then it goes up and they do redistricting. And that's in a normal year when you have a normal time frame. I think, as the representative noted, that the accelerated time frame, because of the delay in the census data, is causing this consideration. And the idea, because they want to live in the district the year before the election, which is in November. So, as he said, if you're not getting the data till the end of September, and your deadline's November, doesn't leave you a lot of time, and their concern is that the municipalities may not be able to respond in a timely manner. The concern would be if we just said, we're just going to go ahead and do re-precincting, and then we'll submit that. The problem is it might not be the same building blocks, because if they go with the alternative method, which is actually used in most states, where they do the districts first, then you do re-precincting, they're going to use census tract data, which our precincts may not mirror the census tract, and that's the disconnect. So you can't just say, oh, we'll just rearrange the blocks. If they're using a different metric, meaning census tract, and we're using a metric of, well, these precincts would make sense given the geography and highways and everything else in Chelmsford, they may not mirror it. So if we were to go ahead, it may just be an exercise in futility, and I think that's the difference.
You've said it a lot better than I've heard it multiple times, Mr. Manager. You've said it a lot clearer. Thank you.
Anything else?
I guess the only closing question, Representative, and again, it's not your bailiwick, but we're also on the edge of our Senate precinct, Senate district as well, and should the town of Chelmsford spend any time looking at that? Because as you know, historically, we've been sort of tied to a district that goes down towards Belmont and Lincoln, Lexington, Waltham. And obviously with the population growth, is it worth any consideration to say, hey, you know, we probably have more in common with the Greater Lowell communities as opposed to the Lexington, you know, should we throw in something like that, or should we just not dilute our,
No,
should the town not dilute its message and just focus on the representative side?
I really believe that, I mean, the message has been loud and clear as I've been
Okay.
throughout town for quite some time. Like I said, I see all familiar faces here, and definitely familiar phone calls from everybody, trying to get things done throughout the state and into the town. I think whatever the BOS is looking to do, or what you're hearing, if it's you know, going from 4 to 3 to 2, I would push that. I'd push both. I think that the Senate, as well as the House, is more than open. The last 10 years ago when this happened, and as I stated earlier, Michael Moran, who is the state rep from Alston Brighton, who is a leader, who is the chair of this committee, he did it 10 years ago, and you know, rave reviews from, you know, Mass Vote and organizations like that. They can handle it, or I say they, we. I'm on the committee, so we can handle it. I would put anything forward. Why not? Why wouldn't you?
Okay.
So. And I happen to agree with you, Mr. Manager. I made that comment 10 years ago about the Senate, but not being a member of the Senate, it was, you know, deaf ears, I guess.
Anything else? Thanks so much for coming,
Great.
Representative Golden.
No problem. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
And,
thanks for all you do for us.
Thank you.
Yes,
Stay out of
thank
the, stay here. It's a lot cooler, so, thanks.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. And I think, Paul, that brings us to the traffic report.
Yeah, Steve Yonley's still on the call, and he's charged with presenting this month's Traffic Safety Committee report. Welcome back, Steve.
Hey, thank you, Paul.
Now you can see us, right?
Yeah. Just quickly, a few updates from the traffic committee. We did the two-way traffic signs over at Byam and Locust in that intersection where we had some complaints. So we got those up. I think after this, there's an item for a little bit more discussion on the parking in the summer. Ledge Road, I know Scott Ludwig has been speaking to the relative that lives out in New York, and I guess it's her attorney has everything for review. Seemed fairly positive that we'd have something closed up here shortly, but that's kind of still just waiting in their hands at this point. Boston and Concord Road, obviously that's under construction as well. As I'm sure everybody is aware, the Borica River Neck intersection has been doing night work. It's just that it's the center of the bridge, so they have no place to shift traffic. So I know they're doing a little bit longer hours this week with the holiday weekend coming up, but hopefully that the night closures will be done here shortly. At some point this summer, we got to get a crosswalk. We looked at it as a committee over by Scotty Hollow on Groton Road. It deals with where school bus stops were, and people had to get across Route 40 right near Scotty Hollow to get for the bus. So we looked at it. We picked a pretty good spot, I think. We'll get that installed, striped, and signed over the course of the summer. We just began updating or highlighting a bunch of crosswalks through the center. We typically do that in advance of the 4th of July parade, so we did that. But we also grabbed a few all around town just to highlight the lines, especially in heavy traffic areas. Even if it's thermoplastic lines, they tend to only make it a year or two before you got to highlight them again. And then at the last meeting, we had quite a few signs for discussion, some of which we decided not to do anything. Some we've already ordered some signs, and there's a couple lingering that we just gotta kind of as a committee review if I can't think of the word, a sign is appropriate. Not a regulatory sign, but like a cautionary sign. So we just gotta kind of look at the locations a little harder as opposed to just throwing signs up everywhere. That's pretty much the update with what we're doing with the committee at this point.
You got a question, George, or you want to go on to the
We're
center?
doing center parking next. Are there general questions about the traffic committee update slide?
Well, I have had a few on Swain Road and
Go ahead.
You know, I mean, I don't know what we can do out there, but I get 3 or 4 calls, you know, probably from the same one that other people get, same 2 or 3 people, 4 people, frequent one, and also, I was wondering, because I get asked, are they gonna put the sidewalk in on Dunstable Road? I think we told them last spring that we were gonna do that.
We have no plans at this point to install sidewalks on Dunstable Road.
Thought they were gonna start like at Dunshire and go up to.
No,
like,
I think
Mission Road.
there was mention of it, but there's been no proposal to move forward.
That was, where did that fall on the Safe Streets plan? It was lower on the list, right? Steve?
Yeah, oh, definitely, where it exactly fell, if it was even on, the complete streets plan, I'm assuming it's on.
Yeah, that's what I mean, sorry.
No, that's fine. Honestly, I'd have to look to see if it was even hit on there. I know the board had talked about it, but I don't remember any.
What I'm thinking,
Clear directive.
we've had, you obviously.
We asked for input, and
Right.
Steve came and said, this is what
Right.
it's gonna
Right.
take and the cost, and it was
Well,
prohibitive at the time.
Where I was trying to go is there was obviously discussion at town meeting last week about sidewalks. And so I had a discussion following the town meeting session with Steve and DPW Director Gary Persichetti, and what we're thinking of doing is coming back to you in the fall and have a public input session on sidewalk planning. So that way, there's a better understanding of where the sidewalks have been installed and what the plan is going forward. And, because it really took us a little back, because there has been a coordinated plan and there is a plan, but we want to get more public awareness and also the opportunity for input, because, you know, I think it would just be helpful, and I think beneficial, particularly as we go to fall town meeting and then next spring in terms of planning. So that's our thought, is to give you data, provide it, and then have it in advanceville for the community ahead of time, and we're thinking of doing this after Labor Day, when people are, you know, back in school, more focused, and everybody's back. Have the data, have a hearing, and then get some input, and then have that discussion going forward, because we just can't meet everybody's desires, and, you know, no matter how much money we have, just in terms of what it would take time-wise and effort, everything else going forward. So I just wanted the board to be aware of that, and then that may give clarity on questions like this. Well, why not Dunstable? Well, you know, if where else in town are sidewalks being considered?
Maybe add to that, I mean, just a random thought. You know, 2 years ago, we did the traffic listening session. Maybe we have an updated transportation / traffic listening session where we have another big meeting and we add into it the sidewalks. Just, because we haven't really had much follow-up on the
Right.
the traffic listening, other than we had a list in the traffic updates, but I don't know if there's maybe enough interest to do another one to see if the new list can be made.
Yeah, and a new list, and we can also talk about road resurfacing as well, because that's the other one. Well, when are they doing My Street? I mean, that's the one that always comes up, and
Yeah, I think this would be a good topic for the work session
Sure,
in
okay.
in August, too, to just like, no, I agree with what you're saying, but just to like
exactly.
codify what
plan and-
session we're gonna have about what and how many. So,
Okay.
Well, what is the law on Jake breaks? I mean, we can't govern.
Jake breaks. We've received concern from residents, and we
Right.
discussed this with Chief Spinney as well. It's an enforcement bit. How do you enforce it? And
didn't even know if you were allowed
that's a
to.
safety concern. I mean, they're allowed to use Jake breaks as a safety mechanism. And we talked about this, about putting signs up and so forth. And I don't know if you want to elaborate on that more, Steve, but it just.
Yeah, it just, I mean, again, like Paul said, they're a safety feature of the vehicle, and how are you gonna prove, I guess, and that was, I think, Chief Spinney's concern, how is the officer gonna prove that they're just riding the Jake intentionally, you know, as opposed to needing it to help slow down, or just because it's a, you know, it is a safety feature of the vehicle. It's a.
excuse me, Steve. Gentlemen, I'm sorry, but your voices are carrying up here. Thank you. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, again, so it just being a safety feature of the vehicles, how do you regulate that? And then how do you determine if they're doing it intentionally? I know that was some of the chief's concerns. So, I mean, I know there's a couple in neighboring communities, but, that say Jake brake prohibited, but how do you enforce that? It's an actual safety feature of the vehicle.
It's just very noisy and.
Oh, yeah. Nobody likes
obviously,
it.
Oh, no,
and it's the
agreed.
same spot all the time, and it's the same people that are, whatever. Thank you.
Okay, anything else on the traffic committee update? Okay, you want to move to the handicap?
Yeah, Steve, as you know, the board last meeting had a discussion and a request regarding the possibility of exploring a second handicapped accessible parking space in the center.
Sure.
I asked you to go back and look at that as concerns that were raised subsequent to the meeting. In fact, Jack Hanley and John Harrington have come into the room, who are two property owners in the center. So I think if you could, and I know you have a graphic, if you could just get an overview, but more importantly, just discuss the bigger issue about, is it possible, and if so, where a second?
Well, just,
Space
Steve,
in the
before you jump into that, I do want to say, after that last meeting, got contacted by a ton of people about a second handicap spot there, and how we agree that there's more handicap spots needed in the center, but that section is probably not the spot for a second one.
Right.
And so I got a call from Mike Rigney, who obviously is on the Center Village Master Plan. He and I had agreed we'd take a walk and probably go to every single location behind the Center for Arts, and mark out all of the different handicap spots, and then measure distance between each ones. And so we're at some point going to do that over the next week to try to figure out if there's maybe a better spot for a second one here. But
Well, the problem is topography is what the big driving
right.
force in
So,
terms of.
yeah,
So anyway.
I'd like to kind of hear with the trade space from Steve,
Yep.
if we don't mind. Go ahead.
Yeah, so at whatever it was, a couple meetings ago, when the board showed their intent for two, a couple days later, I walked kind of that stretch with Jose Negron, the building commissioner, who's also the ADA coordinator for the town, and showed him, what my thoughts were if we were doing one, and if the board remembers, I was putting it at that last space at the corner of Cushing, kind of to the left as you're looking at this photo. But when it changed into the discussion of two spaces, that kind of had to modify our thinking, because then in speaking to a couple different consultants and then the people at the state level disabilities, having to do something similar to what's shown on this graphic, almost having like the accessible ramp in between the two spaces, so either car could then, the front car, they would come to the rear of the vehicle, the other car would come to the front of the vehicle, and I'd have to cut in a new ramp. And the concern, walking up towards, the Common, the old hotel, and then going the other direction towards the coffee shop, and Acton Road even, is the grade of the road. Could we put one at the last space in front of K Cleaners? Well, the pitch of the road gets a little much, and the concern is if somebody gets out and they have, they're either in a chair or they're in a walker or whatever, it'd be too steep. So this being the flattest part would be the location, and Jose agreed this would be the location.
Excuse me,
basically-
Steve,
Sure.
where there's already a curb cut by the diner, was that also too steep?
Yes, by the old Jack's Diner, it's too steep.
Okay, thank you.
So again, this is, sort of what it would look like, hatching out a little bit of area at the front, a little bit of area in the back, then doing like a 5 or 6 foot hatch area in the middle, and we would have to cut in a new accessible ramp right there for them to get up onto the sidewalk. So I know there's been now a lot of other conversation, because to gain these two handicap spots, we have, you're trading off 3 spaces, why aren't we doing just 1, 2? I know Ken just spoke of looking around at all the other locations. We added a couple up at the bike trail behind Brick House. There's some sort of in the municipal lot across the street by the Oddfellows building. So I guess, I'll defer to any other questions or discussion at this point. I mean, we've ordered timing signs and things like that, a 30-minute and 1 hour like was discussed, but we've been holding off, waiting to get a little more direction on what to do with the ADA spaces.
Go ahead, Ted.
Yeah, so I think I was the one that was probably really pushing to have at least 2 down there. But I have heard from the property owners, and it would severely impact their tenants that are there. So to have to take away almost 50% of their parking there, I think would be a hardship on them. So if we could find another place to put it, I agree with you, Ken, I don't know if, maybe up alongside Dennis McHugh's building, although there's really nothing else there except Dennis McHugh's office. Maybe there is another spot, or, as you said, Steve, maybe there is sufficient parking behind the CCA and the other public parking. So I think I would go back on what I was proposing at the last meeting and say, 1 there, it should be sufficient for now.
So the benefit that I see, and I understand the issue with taking up the street parking, the benefit that I would see is, I think one of the reasons that some of the board members were talking about this last time is if the one accessible spot is occupied and somebody else comes and needs one, I don't necessarily, and I'm not saying this is a reason to do 2 in the street, but I don't necessarily agree that saying there's other accessible spots behind buildings and in other parking lots by the CCA would be responsive to someone who maybe isn't in a wheelchair, maybe their disability is walking assisted, and it's not reasonable to expect someone in that situation to park at the CCA and walk over to, Beatles or the diner from there. They just couldn't do that. So that's a scenario where I could see where you would want the street side accessible parking for people who want to access the street side businesses. That said, my feeling on this, and I think we all received a lot of calls, is that if we're going to look at different options, for having 2 spots, I would like to just reopen or to have another public hearing and get input, because that decision, with its good intentions, we made, but then we didn't take public input on it when we made it. It wasn't part of the baseline that went through the Center Village Committee or the Commission on Disabilities. So I think if we're looking at options to change the baseline, I would like to reopen a public hearing, if that's what we decide to do.
Yeah.
What?
That's logical.
Yes.
So I guess the question is, do we want Steve to look at options to change the baseline that we reviewed, or do we just go back to 1 spot? I mean, the worst case, if we look at options for a second spot, we just say, no, it's not feasible, or it's not going to work after public input. It's not committing us.
Well, when you say your definition of a second spot, are you saying a second spot there, or just a second spot in the center centrally
I'm just
located?
saying a second street side spot somewhere in the center, not necessarily there. I mean, Pat mentioned other sites too. But I'm saying not in a parking lot. That's a pretty long walk for somebody who's walking with a walker or a cane.
Well, I'm just going to play devil's advocate for
Sure.
a second, because Jack's in the room, but Jack may sit there and say, well, I'd rather have 1 behind the Beatles building and 1 out front than have 2 out front.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's equal distance, because you can enter, fairly easily to the front of that. So that's what I mean by, like, if we knew there were none behind the building, like the coffee shop and
Yeah.
Jack's building, and you could add 1 there, that's not technically street side, but we can add a second
It's
spot.
street side accessibility.
Yeah, so I would just like to
It's
see. I
better
think-
than the CCA.
Right.
But, I mean, I don't think the CCA is a good argument for people
No,
that want to
I,
come
not to go there. But
Right.
the CCA could be a good spot for the Trails End, where Trails End used to be.
Right.
It's just, I think the baseline, or maybe the process would be, we take a bigger picture of the center, including all the way from CVS to the CCA, to McClure's building, all the way down to, Care Cleaners, and say, okay, including Brick House and all that, where are all the spots? And say, if someone needed to get within 50 feet of every building, is there a spot available? And sort of have that sort of circles done all around the handicap spots to make sure that wherever they park, there's an accessible spot nearby. And I think that should go, we give that to
Wherever they want to do business, there's an accessible
Correct.
spot nearby.
So, and that goes, maybe back from Steve, it sits and goes through that with the Center Village Plan, and then it comes to us for public hearing. Because I think when they did this before, it was just all spots. Now we're focusing just on handicap accessible spots in the same district, or the same area.
Yeah, and the focus was street side spots and timing.
Right.
Well, through all that, we did have discussion for at least one ADA spot. And if you look back at my initial presentation, I at least in that covered municipal lots or public parking, if you will. So I tallied up the handicap spots in those. I did not do like private property lots like the Center Plaza, the Andy Almos Plaza, behind Fishbones or anything like that. I didn't tally any of those up, but I tallied the ones at the behind the town hall, anything in the district, behind town hall, the library, CCA, up along the rail trail,
Yep.
the municipal lot. So that'll at least give you a start if, like I said, I didn't do the private lots.
Thoughts?
I mean, I think that's a good plan to open it up and see if, residents have any other thoughts about where this, another spot might be, given the, that it is kind of in a valley down there, there aren't that many roadside, sidewalk side ones, options that are available to do another one. But as Ken said, maybe it doesn't need to be street side if it's close.
So would we want to do this like toward the end of July or early August when the peak vacation season is over? I think to push it on the 12th might be, especially if it's, do we have to announce it?
Well,
as a
but
public
do you want
hearing?
it to be viewed by the Senate Village Committee first?
Oh, yeah, so let's let Steve get through his process, and
So
I'm
probably
sorry, I'm
talking
getting ahead
August.
of myself.
Probably talking August at that point.
Commissioner on Disabilities too get involved with
Yeah.
them.
Okay,
and
so it's probably
get a
more of an
good
August.
map out, and then
Yep,
Yep.
yep. Does that make sense, Steve?
Yeah, that's
Are
fine.
we, okay.
Okay.
try to do it right.
Sorry, Steve.
No problem. And just a kind of a point of reference, I guess, through the Mass Architectural Access Board, which kind of governs all this stuff. If this was a parking lot, as you remember from the initial presentation, there's 22 total spaces. So if you were building a parking lot with 22 spaces, you'd only be required to have one ADA spot. So just
Where does it go up
you
to
know,
2, Steve? What's the threshold for 2?
over 25.
Okay,
So once you get over 25, then you're required to have one van accessible spot and then one, I guess you call it regular handicap spot. So it's just the 5-foot hatch area as opposed to van accessible has the 8-foot hatch area.
Is that a constant formula? Every 25 is a handicap spot?
It is, and once you get to real high numbers, it becomes like a percentage.
Okay.
okay, anything else? Right, thank you, Steve.
Well,
So Paul, we're at town manager reports, I think.
Yeah, just briefly, I wanted to increase the awareness of something that's happened since our last meeting, but obviously the board's aware of. But since that time, the legislature enacted, and Governor Baker signed into law, an extension of the measures that were originally adopted during the state of emergency regarding remote meeting provisions and sale of alcohol. So the first one is the legislature has extended until April 1st, 2022. So next April 1st, the remote meeting provisions of the law, which means that boards, committees can continue to meet fully remote, until that time. And I think you may see some town boards and committees do that. So I just wanted to increase the awareness amongst the public as well as amongst some of the board and committee members. We did send notice out that this is allowed now up until April 1st of 2022. And then
Paul, what
Go ahead.
what is the cost for the Zoom meetings that we have?
It's really negligible.
Okay.
It's really not a significant cost
Okay.
to do that. What you're finding out is some of the boards, where they don't tend to have a lot of public, they may continue to meet remotely, but also a number of committees and communities, including us, have found that keeping the remote, what we call a hybrid here, increases public participation. I think you'll see that, as we've done, continue going forward. But they will wire, we're working with telemedia and facilities to wire room 205, the similar as this room, so you can have that hybrid approach. The problem is, we only have the technical capability of only broadcasting one location live. So what you could have is you could have a Zoom thing without the cable. So we're trying to do everything we can to promote public participation. But the key message is that the remote meeting provisions have been extended by the legislature until April 1st, 2022, and I think that's designed to give the legislature time to decide what permanent measures they want to do with respect to this. And then similarly with alcoholic beverages, they've extended until April 1st, the same date, the patio outdoor operations until that date, where licenses have been approved for expanded patio and outdoor services, as we've seen a number of establishments in town. And then the takeaway deliveries of alcohol have been extended until May 1st, regarding the delivery sales and so forth. But back to the patio outdoor expansions, that's been proved very popular, obviously, which is why they've extended it. I just want the board to know, I've suggested to our community development director, who meets with the planning board, who is the genesis of zoning articles in town, that perhaps maybe they could come back either this fall or preferably this fall, because if this doesn't get enacted beyond April 1st, if we go to town meeting next April, we might not see the effects of that until like next summer. I guess the concern is we ought to look at our own zoning to see, can we make it permanent? Because one of the challenges are, and we know as a licensing board, is when we permit outdoor seating, and I know George and Pat have sat in these for quite some time, we often come at the expense of indoor seating. And then because of the issues of parking spaces and so forth. And so I've asked Evan to, as the planning board now regroups and looks to what they may want to bring back at fall town meeting, to perhaps look at the dining, parking, setback issues to see if that may be helpful to facilitate this, because it seems quite popular, even in town, about, is there a way, because if you look at some of them, there's only so much room, and you don't want to run into a situation where, they're getting squeezed because people want to have outdoor seating, but then it's at the expense of indoor seating. So anyway, the important thing is it's been expanded until April 1st, 2022, the outdoor patio expansion. And again, I'm asking that the planning board perhaps look and see if take an examination of our bylaws to see if there's something that could be modified. I know parking is obviously a sensitive issue with, establishments, but is there something that we could look at to see, given our known constraints, in order to provide some assistance to restaurant owners?
So these are not local option, these are in effect, and there's not, we can't accept or reject them, is that correct, both of these?
No, they're not local options. The local licensing authority have the final say.
Okay.
Yeah, so you have the final say. I mean, you can say, oh, we're not going to grant, as local licensing authority, outdoor, patio expansions.
I'm fine with that one.
Yeah.
It's the takeaway alcohol one that I'm a little surprised that it says, all alcohol shall be at the same price as alcohol for on premises. Does that mean before that they were not doing that?
I can only speak of what I read and hear and learn. The concern is not so much that they would overcharge, but they would undercharge. Because
right.
At that point, they would be competing with package stores. And so I think the idea would be, hey, look, let's acknowledge what's reality. Most of the dining establishments derive significant profits and supports their operations by the liquor sales. And so the concern being that you don't want them discounting that as a revenue source at the expense of package store owners.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the concern, is, okay, if you're gonna do, take out alcohol, the pre-mixed drinks and so forth, well, then you gotta charge the same price you're gonna charge in the establishment, so you're not basically, going the other direction.
Right, it almost, makes every restaurant be a package store.
Yeah, but I would think that they probably can't be it may not be able to be cost competitive with a package store, given what they charge you to go, I mean, think about it. You know what you pay for, it's like going to a package store and asking for a six-pack of beer versus buying a beer in a restaurant that, same price, yeah. And so I think that's what they're trying to get against.
Right. I think, though, what you were saying,
Mocktails to go, yeah.
I know what I was saying is you would go in, you'd pick up your food to go, and then let's say you ordered a couple drinks to go.
Yep.
They'd put them either in a mason jar or container, but to put one drink in would be like a baby food jar.
Right.
So they would put two in, and you want them to charge you twice the price. They
Right,
don't want them
exactly.
charging them what they were charging you for one drink and giving you two, because now they're, like you said, competing with package stores. But I think that's what they're trying to prevent is.
Right.
So who's charged with enforcement of that part of it?
Well, it ultimately comes down to the ABCC. If somebody's violating that, they're going to go after them because they're the ones who come in and do the inspections and sanctions and so forth. But obviously, if there's a local concern, they could notify the town, and we could notify the ABCC or look into it. But they're the enforcing authority. And then obviously, if there's a violation of any liquor license, then this board has the right to hold the hearings.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I don't know if they're really seeing much of that anymore anyways, the liquor to go. Because now that things are open, it is a lot more expensive to do the liquor to go, so.
Yeah, and then you hear the stories about, having food and that delivered to the beaches, so I think we for sure want to make
Yeah.
sure that doesn't
Yeah,
happen.
I hadn't heard that story, but okay.
Yeah.
Crafty.
Okay, I do have a couple of appointments that left over on annual appointments. One is for the Vinyl Square Action Plan Committee reappointment of Brian Creamer for a one-year term ending June 30th, 2022, and then the Military Community Covenant Task Force reappointment of Steve Miller for a three-year term expiring June 30th, 2024.
Any discussion? Have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the town manager's appointments as presented.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Right.
5-0.
And then you have one that falls under your bailiwick for the
Culture.
Agricultural Commission.
You want me to go through it? Do we need to talk about it anyway, or?
Anybody have any comments?
It's a vacancy on the position,
Yep.
result of Glenn Cole not seeking reappointment.
So we have a Michael Reisbeck applying for the Agricultural Commission.
It's interesting that he indicates he's going to try to get that commission to
Farmers market.
to run the farmer's market. Good luck with that.
Okay, if there's no discussion, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve Michael Reisbeck as the appointment to the Agricultural Commission.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ken, how
Aye.
do you vote? 5-0. Okay. So now we're at appointment of legal counsel. When we appointed town council, specifically BBH Law and KP Law for Labor Council, and then subsequently KP Law took Elections Council, or whatever you call that. That was for a term, an appointment through June 30th of 2021. So we need to revisit those appointments. I'm open for any discussion.
I'm fine with leaving as is.
Okay.
Don't we usually put that out for bid, or is this,
Not every year. We don't usually do it every year.
In October of 2019, we got 3 bids, I think. Any other comments, Ken?
No, nothing.
Do you, so,
I don't know, I'm looking for everybody else. It's kind of snuck up on me. When I saw it on the agenda, I said, oh, that's right, we need to do this, so.
I wasn't, yeah, me too.
Okay, so are we ready to discuss it tonight, or is there some other preparation you want to do?
Or do you-
VBH does not have Labor Council? They don't have that capability, I asked the question. So, it's a question of leaving it as it is, or if there's a change anybody wants to make with either one. Do you have any thoughts, Mark?
No, I'm fine with
Okay.
as it is.
Are you guys prepared to vote tonight?
I mean, I think even when we have solicited quotes or, you know, from other law firms, it's usually every 3 or 4 years and not 2 years. But as I said, I'm fine with the way it is right now.
Yeah, typically with law partners, we're not looking to shop for the lowest bidder anyway, so we're trying to get somebody that has continuity and understanding of town situations.
Yep.
and
Well, that's why
challenges and
legally,
so
we're not
forth.
bound to take the lowest
Right.
because of that,
Right.
so.
So, I would-
What are your thoughts, George?
Oh, I really wasn't ready. When I saw it, and then I looked on 10, and there wasn't anything there, and I don't recall doing it this way before, but I'm sure if everybody else says it was, I always thought that, you know, people would get up there and they'd give a pitch about their firm, and we'd make a decision.
But we don't do that every year. We usually normally do that every 3 years, right?
The last appointment was for 2 years. So,
Okay.
I mean, I defer to you because that's my only experience with this.
I've been with boards of selectmen for 15 years almost now. I think it's gone out to bid twice.
Right, it hasn't been, right.
Right, over that 15-year period. And that was at the direct request of the board.
Mhm.
Must have been like the last 2 times involved, maybe. Was it?
Well, last time was almost 2 years ago, and the time before that was several
Probably-
years prior.
Yeah, probably
before that.
around 15 or so, 14 or 15.
I was gonna say, I thought I sat through it twice.
I know I have.
Maybe it was, maybe that was the first time. But I didn't think so.
I think my first year I sat
No,
through it.
It's when you changed to Myrick O'Connell for Labor Council,
Right.
and that goes back, what, 5 years or so? And then the most recent one was 2 years ago.
So-
Prior to that, there was nothing for a 10-year period. So again, it's been, you know, that's how it's been over the 15 years that I've experienced it. And usually the board appoints counsel for a 1-year period.
Are we okay appointing for another year?
Mhm.
Or do board members want to do something different?
I wasn't ready.
You're not ready? Okay. Do you want to take this up on July 12th? Or what would be
Well,
different?
I mean, I don't know what would be different if we're not gonna ask anybody else. I mean, I wouldn't be comfortable voting for KP, to be very honest with you.
Okay?
Just the way I feel. I don't think they represented a few things as well as it could have been. And, you know, I'm not an expert on legal counsel, so I don't know, but it's just my opinion.
Any other thoughts on that?
Well, I'll probably agree with George on that one. I think I'll leave it at that, because we're in the middle of some other stuff.
Can't hear you, Ken.
I would agree with George with that comment, but I'm not going to go into details because of where we're at right now.
Okay.
I don't think my number of months here really has a lot of weight on this.
So what would you like to do? Do you want to,
I'd probably like to see us wait till the next meeting, because I saw this on Thursday. Well, Wednesday, when did we get the preliminary? On Wednesday of last week, and didn't really, we haven't discussed it, and I didn't know what the board thought, so.
okay? is there data that you want on the 12th? Or are we just going to discuss it on the 12th? While folks feel more prepared, when people feel more prepared to discuss it.
I think I may have said something earlier. If I get the next, I brought that in with the next part of the agenda on retaining the company on the class action suit. And that's, because I never thought we did it even this time of the year either. I thought it was in the fall. I don't know why. Maybe
The only one I've sat through was in the fall, and we were months late doing it because the appointments had expired in June.
Right, the appointments traditionally expire June 30th.
With the fiscal year?
Yeah, with the fiscal, like everyone else's appointments. But I guess, again, I'm not want to wade into your waters, but if there's no concerns regarding legal counsel, then why wouldn't you reappoint Blattman, Bobrowski, and Haverty for 1 year? And then I think if you want to do another thing, I think you've got to appoint somebody for at least a month or something for labor counsel, because on July 1st, I have to have authority, because aside from the matter that you're dealing with regarding my employment, I'm the one dealing with all the labor issues with the department heads. And so I need to have labor counsel effective July 1st in 3 days. So again, I'm not trying to wade into your waters. It's your
If you guys want
appointment.
to come back and revisit this in our July meetings, I'd be okay with at least extending them for the month. Paul needs some authority to,
I think we have to at least do that.
it's not going to stop.
It's fine if that's what you want to do.
I think that's what we need.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And so
I mean,
now-
just obviously because there's,
That's a no-brainer, we have to do
right,
that.
we got to do minimum of that. So, because there's a lot of non-talking going on. So, we can, I mean, I don't have a problem making a motion to extend legal counsel for both firms to the end of August.
Well, if we don't have a problem with BBH, we could extend that for a year now. The only issue you guys have raised is KP Law.
Okay.
I think that's what Paul was suggesting, is we could extend BBH for a year till June 30th and extend KP Law for another month or two while we sort through your concerns.
All right. So do you want a motion to approve BBH for 1 more year?
Yes, ending June 30th,
Ending June
2022.
30th, 2022.
Okay, we're going to do them separate.
Why don't we?
I'll second that motion.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then we'll make a motion to extend KP Law to the end of July of 2021.
Do you want to make it that
I'll make it
soon?
August.
You want to
just-
do the end of August?
Yeah.
August 30,
Yeah. I
August
think so.
31st, 2021?
Yeah,
Please.
I'll second that motion.
Okay.
Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And so I'm going to go back to, what do we want to do over the next 2 months to resolve this? Is it just, do we start with just a discussion on July 12th?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have what you need, Paul?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So let's go to the retainer agreement for the PFAS class action litigation.
Yeah, at the last meeting, you would, when we discussed the PFAS class action litigation, the board had requested that I contact the town council, Paul Haverty, and just have him correct it. It was a typo in the retainer agreement. But I did do so. The document has been sent back. It's a little shaded because it was a photo image. Apparently, the attorney was away and was not able to access the scanning machine. But in essence, I think the typo, which was the top of the illustrative section on the second page and number 3 about the attorney's fees, has been corrected. So other than that, it's the same agreement, the standard agreement that was explained to you. And so town council is comfortable. Paul Haverty reviewed this. He's comfortable with it. And so at this point, it would be before you for adoption to join this litigation, which was the recommendation.
I just have that, and probably it's not going to matter, but the fact that at the very beginning, it says it's under federal arbitration and Massachusetts general arbitration statute, and then, you know, paragraphs 12 and 13 both reference New York. Granted, that probably will never happen, but just for consistency purposes, I don't know if
It
there's
says
any-
New York or applicable law. That's what's on 12. It says agreement should be construed under the accordance with the state laws of the state of New York or applicable law and rights.
But then it
duties.
says the arbitration shall be enforceable in either federal or state court in New York County. The next paragraph. about the
But
middle.
that's common, is it not? If there's a dispute or arbitration, they pick a state under which that will be resolved.
Yes.
Well, why is it not Massachusetts, I guess is the question. I mean, and why does it not say then New York at the beginning and end? Because the beginning and at the end also it mentions Massachusetts general arbitration statute.
Oh, because you're saying, because the statement says is subject to arbitration, and so they've got the word arbitration tied to Massachusetts in the beginning
Correct.
And at the very end.
and at the end, but not in those paragraphs.
Yeah. Which, you know.
Well, is there an urgency to signing this tonight, or can we go back and ask Paul Haverty that question?
We can ask Paul again. I can ask him again. That's fine.
I mean, I don't want to be picky, but, just in case something happens and there is some arbitration, I think we want to know which way it's going to go, where it's going to go.
All right,
I
we'll table
mean,
it.
if everybody else is okay with it that way, then that's fine. But
Well, I think to be
I think
clear,
you should get your question answered.
yeah,
We'll get an answer.
you don't want to sign an unclear contract.
Okay.
It makes things messy.
All
You're
right.
right.
And that brings us to meeting minutes.
Any input? Can I make a motion?
Take a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the May 3rd, 2021 hybrid virtual meeting minutes of the Board, the Select Board.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
All right.
Aye. 5-0. And we are at liaison reports and referrals. Pat?
Okay, I have a couple of things. Since it's so early, maybe I'll take a little time tonight. Not really. First of all, I want to thank the Senior Center for hosting the first Veterans Breakfast we've had in probably almost a year and a half now, last Thursday, and want to, thank KJ's Cafe for catering. It was really good. It was good to see so many people that hadn't seen in a year and a half, and then to see some new folks there, like Mark. First time Mark was there, right? And hopefully it's not the last time. So thanks to the Senior Center for opening up for us for that. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee had their Juneteenth event. Must be about a week and a half ago now, I guess. That went very well. And they intend to make that an annual event, so hopefully the attendance will pick up. But they had, I think, some really good performers, and it was good to see so many people come out and support that. The Chelmsford Friends of the Library is having a book drop, but it's by appointment only. So if you have fiction books, they're collecting at this time only fiction books. And if you have some you'd like to donate, you have to make an appointment with the Chelmsford Friends. You can contact them through chelmsfordfriends@gmail.com. The donations will be on July 10th and July 29th. But again, they're trying to get people to schedule a time for when they bring it, so they're not totally inundated with thousands of books all at once. And I wanted to follow up from town meeting on the one citizen petition that we passed having to do with the Sustainability Committee. Are we going to be discussing that at some point, and how that would be set up, who would be on it, and things like that?
So we should put that on a future agenda. Thank
Yeah.
you for the reminder.
all I have.
George?
I'm all set, thanks.
Mark?
Just mainly reiterating from Center Village, we had some meetings on that with regard to the parking situation and the opportunity for them to revisit this whole thing, which I think we handled pretty well tonight, so that's it.
Thank you. Ken?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just have a couple things. The Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan Committee would like to thank everyone who participated in the Vinyl Square Transportation Infrastructure Improvement Survey. That survey is now closed, and they're asking that you mark your calendars for Thursday, July 15th, where they will get a debrief by NIMCOG on the summary of priorities that came out of that survey. Future agenda item, I have a suggestion, which would be to talk about the ARPA funding. Like, we made a pretty big allocation to the CCA at our last meeting, and I'm wondering if we want to talk about clarity and how that money gets allocated and how we report on it, because it's a significant amount. So, just at least have a working discussion. Does that make sense to them? Everyone?
Sounds to me.
Okay.
Do you want that on July 12th, or when's the future? Like 26th or 26th?
I would do it the 26th,
Okay, okay.
so we have everyone here.
Okay.
Okay. I don't see any press. So I will take a motion again.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
No, you
No.
won't.
I'll make a motion to adjourn into executive session to discuss the opioid litigation update, not to return.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second by roll call. Pat?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
It's funny, it's right in front of me. I got it like...
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Chelmsford Telemedia.